class, we spent some time talking about living versus non-living things. What we're really doing is setting up kind of where we're going and what we're going to do in biology for this year, and as we kind of explore what biology is. So in class, what we had everybody do was everybody should have a notebook. So generally in biology, there's going to be some days where you're going to need your notebook to jot some things down, to have that on record so that you have it for later use. We didn't take a whole lot of notes, but we did write down a few things. So if you have a notebook for biology, now would be a great time to get that out. If you don't yet, that's fine. Just make sure you're working on getting that. So we started kind of digging into this question, which is our essential question for this kind of 2-day lesson, and that is, what is life? We kind of pondered and discussed what life is in the sense of its definition, not so much pondering the meaning of life, right? We just want to know, how do we define something as living or not? And so to start us out in that, first thing we talked about was just what biology is in general. And so when you look at biology, biology can be broken down into two parts, the prefix and the suffix. And so this is kind of a neat trick that we have, or that we're able to use a lot in biology, and that is to break words down in prefixes and suffixes to understand what it means. So biology is broken down into bio and ology. Bio means life, and ology is the study of. So it's the study of life. If you think about words that end in ology, that's always referring to the study of something. So you have cosmetology, the study of cosmetics. You have cardiology, the study of the heart. You have psychology, which is the study of the psyche, or the mind, in other terms. So we really need to understand that in this class, in biology, we're going to dig into this idea of what is life, okay? What is life? How does life work? What keeps us living through the day? Whether we're in control of that or whether our body does it itself, those are the things that we're really going to dig into. So before we can really understand all the processes of life, we have to understand what life is. And so what I had everybody do at this point, which is going to be a little difficult for you, I'm going to share this slideshow, and what you'll find at the very bottom of it is like 70 some slides of different organisms. So there's a polar bear, there's a T-Rex, there's Homo sapien. Then if we go even further down, there's nucleic acids, water, sweat, caves, all kinds of things. And so what I asked everybody to do was to kind of break off into groups and create a definition or a list of characteristics that defined life. So saying that all living things should have these characteristics. Okay, so, and I'm actually on the wrong slide here, so I'm going to go here. So what I want you to do right now, go ahead and pause this video, and I want you to write down in your notebook a list of characteristics that you would say every living thing has this. So for instance, some people yesterday said that all living things breathe. Okay, I'm not going to say you're right or wrong, I'm just going to say create a list. Okay, then what I want you to do is I want you to just skim through. Once you get that list down, I want you to skim through these organisms, and just based off of the list that you made, try to identify which things, or some of the things, maybe not all 70, but try to identify which things are living and how you know that based on the list that you created. Okay, so go ahead and pause this, go do that right now, and then come back and I'll kind of wrap this up with you. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to kind of sort that out and kind of think through that. Okay, the biggest thing from today is just getting you to think about what life is. Okay, there's no right or wrong answers. No one in class was being told they're right or wrong. It's simply a thought process. Okay, so what I want to give you now is two definitions. And notice I'm skipping some of these slides, so just really focus on the ones that I'm going over with you. I really want you to look at this here. So this is NASA's definition of life. So if you were to ask the scientists at NASA, they would say something like this: life is a self-sustained chemical system capable of undergoing evolution. So we can make that relatively simple. We can say that life is a system that can keep itself going, right? That's capable of undergoing evolution. All right, so do me a favor, take just a second, jot this down in your notebook as NASA's definition of life, okay? And you can write it as is, or if you want to simplify it, feel free to do that. Again, it's really just saying that life is a system, particularly a system made up of chemicals, right, that can keep itself going and undergo evolution. So take just a minute, pause this, write that down in your notebook so that you have that definition. Okay, so now that you have that, what I want to give you now is another definition, but this one's going to be in the form of a list, very similar to what you previously made and wrote down. So in science, generally, and you might have done this in in middle school, your teacher might have given you the 8 characteristics of life, right? If not, that's great. You're going to get them right now. If you did, you're going to get them again. But in science, we generally use this list that says, living things do these things. Okay, so number 1 is response to stimulus. That means it can respond to its environment. Number 2 is all about having genetic information, DNA and RNA. Number 3, it contains cells. Number 4, gas exchange, meaning that it can breathe. Okay. 5 is processing energy, meaning you eat and make energy. 6 is reproduction, so you can reproduce, you can make new organisms. 7 is grow and develop, and then 8 is create waste. So science would generally say that if something can do those things, it's probably living. But the complex part of this whole process is that it doesn't always fit these categories, right? For instance, if you look at NASA's definition, life is a self-sustained chemical system capable of undergoing evolution. Well, if something was living, let's say shooting in the dark, let's just say there's a fish, okay? Let's just say there's a fish, and the fish doesn't ever undergo any form of change or evolution. Can we still consider it a living thing? The answer would probably be yes, but it's complex, right? And so when we look at these definitions, we can't really look at them as being the end-all be-all, okay? They're a guide to help us understand and to think through whether something is living or not. Same with this list, okay? So what I want you to do right now is pause me again, make sure you get this list down in your notes, and have that there, and then I'll continue. So go do that right now. Okay, so looking at this list, another example. So generally we would say if something meets these criteria, then it's living. Well, I want you to think about fire. So let's say you set a house on fire, the house is burning, okay? The fire can respond to its stimulus, right? So if you put water on it, it's going to react. If you give it more oxygen, it's going to react. So it can respond to its stimulus. It can move through and under doors and all kinds of stuff like that. Genetic information, fire doesn't have that, okay? Cells, fire doesn't have cells either. As far as gas exchange, though, fire does take in oxygen, burns it, and creates CO2 and other gases. So it does exchange gases. It does produce energy. Heat is energy, and it reproduces. It creates more fire, and it gets bigger, right? And then at the end of it, there's waste. There's char, there's ashes, there's all kinds of stuff left behind. So if you look at this list and compare it to fire, you might say, well, fire meets most of these characteristics, so it must be living. but it's not. Okay, so again, we're outlining this complexity that life is just not that simple to put it in a box. Sometimes we have to use our guides, we have to use what's given to us as far as information, and we have to really think about it. We have to really do a scientific process to understand how this is working or whether this thing is living or not based on the evidence we have. Okay, and so what I want you to do right now, and what we're doing in class today is to kind of chew on that exactly. Okay, and that is looking at a virus like COVID-19. Okay, some people in the scientific community would say that viruses are living. Others would say that they're not. Okay, so what I'm going to give you is a little activity here that's going to both get you to think through this process of life, but also to practice a skill that we're going to be really, really, really heavy on this year, and that's being able to make a claim and then supporting it with evidence. So what I want you to do on Canvas, there is a doc that looks like, sorry, let me make sure I get it right. So there's an article that looks like this, okay? So first thing I want you to do is I want you to read through this article. It's going to give you some basic background information on viruses, and then down at the bottom it's going to give you a table, okay? And what this table is showing you is organisms or objects that are found on Earth. Okay, so here's the name of them, here's a picture of them, and then it gives you all this information. Okay, so it gives you the lifespan, gives you where does it get its energy from, where does it get carbon from, where does it get its waste, or does it have waste production, does it respond to stimulus, are there biomolecules or macromolecules is what we call them. Those are proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, the things that we need to survive. Does it have those present? Does it reproduce? Does it have genetic information? Does it have DNA or RNA? And does it grow? So I want you to just kind of skim through there and identify some of these objects and whether you would consider them to be living or not based on the information that you have. Okay? And so once you kind of get a chance to dig through that, what I want you then to do is on Canvas again, there's a doc that looks like this. It says, what is life? Is a virus a living thing? Characteristics of life. Looks like this. So the question is, should a virus be classified as a living organism? Okay, there is zero right or wrong answer here. You're making a claim one way or the other. Yes, it is. No, it is not. Okay, once you make that claim, you then need to provide me two pieces of evidence. Okay, the places where you're going to get the evidence from is from the article that I gave you, which is this, the article in the chart, and the notes that we took over the characteristics of life and the definition of life. Okay, so looking at these two things here that we have gone over. So utilizing all of that, okay, you're going to complete this assignment, and then in the evidence, that's where you're going to say, on this, on the article, it said this, and then your justification is explaining how that proves that your claim is correct. Okay, so it's make your claim, are viruses living or are they not? What is a piece of evidence that you pulled from one of the sources, and then how does that prove your claim to be true? Okay, the more detailed, the better. Don't just couple words. Don't use just a couple words. Use your thoughts, use your brains, use your words so that you can communicate very, very clearly on what you mean and what you think. Okay, so I really want to kind of end this with a general thought, and it's going to kind of be obnoxious because, you know, we all want to have, you know, the right answer always. But really the answer is this: life is complex. It's hard to fit life into a box. Think of it more of as a continuum versus a set in stone list. It's not that simple. And so in science, what we have to be able to do is we have to be able to take the evidence around us. We have to be able to look at how things are working and how things are interacting using the information and evidence that we have to really understand how the things around us work, right? And life is that exact same way. Okay, we have to look at an organism like a virus, and we have to decide, based on the evidence we have, does it make sense for it to be living? If we look at fire, does the evidence say that it's living or does it not? And sometimes in science, we have the ability to think and to come up with the answers. That's the beauty of science, is that there's not really ever a right answer until we can prove it. And so that's why we're going to practice this big skill of claim and evidence. Because if we can make a claim and we have evidence to back it up, generally we can make a good argument as to why something is the way that it is. Okay, so that is what I need from you today. So probably by the end of Thursday, I will expect all of these assignments to be due. Once it is finished, you're going to go onto Canvas, you're going to hit submit. That way it gets submitted to me. And again, you don't need to be worried about right or wrong. I just want to see your thought process. I want to see how you think through this and the evidence that you provide. Okay, so this all will be on Canvas for you to check out. If you have any questions, please email me, let me know, and I would gladly help you. So have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.